Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Well-Tended Life. I'm your host, Carrie Wilt, a speaker, writer, and heart cultivator who is on a mission to help you and me grow through any season. I'm here today with my very special guest, Tracey Hewitt, who graciously agreed to be a part of this interview series called The Practice Of. Now, this interview series was inspired by the words of my great-great-grandmother in The Secret Garden when she wrote, "You just try it," urged Martha, handing her the skipping rope. "You can't skip to 100 at first, but if you practice, you'll mount up." And here's the deal. What we choose to do over and over, what we intentionally practice in our everyday lives is vital to living a well-tended life. If we are not choosing the right things over and over, we're going to get off the path and we're going to grow a whole lot of weeds. So far we have explored the practice of meditation. We've explored the practice of magic, the good kind, of course, and healthcare, advocating for ourselves. And this week I've invited Tracey to come talk to us about the practice of creativity. She has all the way across the ocean, at least for me in Texas. You will notice an accent, just a small one. She's from Australia, and I think we're going to have a good time today. I'm pretty certain of it. So welcome, Tracey. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Oh, Carrie, thank you for having me. It's a real honor.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so tell everyone who you are, what you do, like why are you even qualified to talk about creativity?
Well, isn't that a good question? I'm an artist and a writer, and I'm married to a farmer, which you wouldn't think would be very creative, but in fact, farmers are really creative people.
Yes.
I paint, and sometimes I put down my paintbrush and I pick up a pen and write. And I don't have any formal qualification, but I've been making stuff since I was a kid, and yeah, I go okay as an artist. I sell some paintings. There's nothing quite as big a buzz as somebody who wants to hang an artwork on their wall. So that's pretty cool. But what I really love to do is teach art journaling. And I came to that through, my own experiences with anxiety mainly. And we'll talk a bit more about that as we go along. But yeah, I discovered that, it can be a really powerful tool for healing. And yeah, so I teach art journaling. I'm good. I'm having a brain blank. Teach art journaling in person, in live classes, and also on my website through online classes. And I've got a real favourite class that I call Making Friends with Muriel, which is it's a course designed around befriending our inner critic, because I discovered, in a really dark time, that voice in my head was a real, am I allowed to say bitch?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
girl. She's a bitch.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I used to just tell her to scoot off, but I discovered, in fact, that you get much better results if you kind of say, "Here, let me make you a cup of tea and sit you out under a tree, and what would you like? And let me brush your hair and just enjoy the sun there. And I've got this. I don't need you for a minute." And that works a whole lot better. So I sort of take people through a whole process of giving their inner critics a name and a personality, and actually drawing a portrait of them. And it's really fun, and yeah, it's my little happy thing.
Well, and I mean, we all have those, right? I mean, anybody who thinks that they don't have an inner critic are probably fooling themselves in my mind.
So I believe so. I have met one man. I've got a friend whose husband, when I was explaining this, just looked at me like I had 3 heads and gills. I was like, I have no idea what you like. He was seriously, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, you are a rare animal. But he's lovely, he's beautiful. And I don't know whether he's deluded or whether he really is just that together. I'm not sure.
Well, and it's probably possible, but I think the idea, though, of giving him a name or her a name, maybe that's probably where he gets confused of, but I feel like, don't we all have those voices that are, that come a calling when things get hard, and stressful
and protect us. I think that's the thing about them. Their primary function is to protect us, to stop us from stepping out in front of an oncoming train, and to keep us safe. But they're kind of stuck back in the cave with the saber-toothed tiger, and if they can see something sparkling out there, it's like, oh, hang on, no, that's just got to be dangerous. It might be really awesome and wonderful, but no, your mortal life is in danger. Don't do it. And they'll tell you all the things to stop you and keep you safe. And that's what they're there for. So if we can reassure them, if we can reassure that voice, I mean, it's a part of ourselves, but in giving it a sort of separate personality, it gives you a little bit of space between you, the essential you, and that voice to sort of go, oh, hold on, that's not actually true.
Right.
So, yeah, it's really powerful stuff. I find it really powerful stuff, and it seems to really work well for a lot of people.
Oh, my goodness. I love that. I think I might need to take that course.
It's lots of fun.
So one of the things I always do when we start is I ask everyone to tell us kind of what season they're in. Just give us a snapshot in kind of what's going on in your world right now.
Well, right now I am, I think, in a season of busyness, I think would be fair to say. In the last month, I've delivered and hung 2 exhibitions, one part of a group show and another one, a little solo one, in a hospital, which I'm really happy to be part of, because, I bang on all the time about how healing creativity is. So to be involved in something in a hospital setting is, I'm really happy to be involved in that. My husband's parents are in the process of packing up one house and moving into another house back closer to where we live. They are getting on, and they need a lot of help, and a lot of that's falling here. So that's keeping me pretty busy, and there's lots going on. And of course, with the farm, well, there's always something. I'm responsible for admin and bookwork and stuff. So, and we work with our 3 adult sons, so there's lots of family around me. We've got grandbabies always around, really close by, and it's lovely. It's really hectic and busy, but it's lovely. I am, however, looking forward to a little bit of, I don't know, a wintry season, a little dormant phase will be good. I'll enjoy that when it comes. I can't see where it is yet, but I will enjoy it when it comes.
Oh, of course. That transition, I'm sure, of the parents moving and all of that, we did it. We moved my husband's parents here probably, maybe it's been 4 or 5 years now. And they are not, they are still young enough. It's not like we have, are having to take care of them. But I just remember the process being a lot, going through all of your stuff and helping them go through all of their stuff. And that's a hard thing. And even to watch them in the transition. Are they moving to you are they moving to you where they didn't live before? So,
well, they lived here on the same property that we live on for a long time. I think it's about 15 years ago, they retired to a beach house, and they've been there, but they're moving back to our town. They're not moving back to the farm, but they're moving back to town. So there's also a renovation going on in there. They bought a house.
Oh, girl.
Yeah.
Let's just do one more thing.
That's it. Oh, and my mum makes glass fused
jewelry.
Oh, lamp work beads. I'm trying to think of the word. So glass. Yeah. And I'm helping her set up a website too, just because I didn't have anything much going on this week.
Oh my goodness. Well, clearly you're getting to do your artwork for the exhibition and things like that. But in a busy life like that, how are you fitting in creative time in your creative practice?
That is such an important question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I could flick the screen around here and show you my garden, but I won't. There's a lot of weeds. Yeah. So I'm not a good gardener. But look, you make choices, and I even wrote a list so I wouldn't forget what these little things were. It's something that I talk about a lot, that, you know, when people say to me, oh, but I'd love to do something creative, but I don't have time, it actually makes me want to go, oh. It's like, bullshit, I don't have time either. Nobody's got time. You make time, and you make a conscious choice to choose yourself. And it doesn't have to be a lot. Like, it's amazing how 10 minutes, 20 minutes a day can add up over time to completed things. You know, I wrote a book a few years ago, and I wrote it in half-an-hour sessions over the course of about a year. I mean, after a year, you've got a book. It adds up. And yeah, you know, look for places in your life where your time's just kind of disappearing and not being terribly meaningful. And I think all you've got to do is pick up your phone and know yes, social media. I mean, social media can be wonderful, and I certainly, it's been tremendous for me in terms of, I mean, I wouldn't have had this opportunity to talk to you if it weren't for social media. So it's got a place, but you have to be really mindful about how you use it and access it. And, you know, what's your favourite TV show? Do you really need to watch, you know, 2 hours of TV of an evening? I do actually sit in front of the TV, but I sit in front of the TV with a sketchbook. So, you know, the left part of my brain's getting a little bit occupied, and the right part's doing its thing uninterrupted. So that's a good spot. Another thing that I would say to people is, you know, make it a priority. Do it. Create first. Have your half an hour or your 10, whatever you think you can manage. If you think you can only manage 5 minutes, we'll start with 5 minutes, and do it first. Block it in, make an appointment with yourself, and be as loyal and dedicated to keeping that appointment as you would an appointment with your accountant or your doctor. Really make it a priority. And I think, did I say don't wait for a free afternoon? A lot of people
you didn't, but that's great advice.
A lot of people say, oh, you know, when everything calms down, I'll do this. When I get a free afternoon, I'd love to do this. Like, that's not going to happen. It's not going to come along and magically land in your lap with, you know, heavenly angels accompanying.
But wouldn't that be nice, Tracey? Can we please, let's just make that happen.
As soon as I work out how to make that happen, I will let you know.
Thank you.
I would just love it. You know, a week of uninterrupted time to do nothing but, painting. Oh, yeah, how cool would that be?
I remember, especially when my kids were young, October was always just this hellacious month. Like, I don't know what it was, but there was something, you know, and I used to just say, like, when I get to the end of October, I'll have time for what you, like, fill in the blank. And it was a giant lie. It was a giant lie. Like, it was a lie that I told myself to make myself feel better about putting aside everything else and thinking somehow that I would get to the end of October and things would be different. And it wasn't. It never was. It rolled into the next one and the next week and the next week. And I think recognizing that it truly is a lie we're telling ourselves. If you truly are telling yourselves that you don't have time for creativity or meditation or magic or to take care of your health, any of these things we're talking about a practice of, you are lying to yourself. And that's the truth of it. Take a hard look at your calendar, take a hard look at your phone. It'll tell you what you've been spending time on, and quit lying. Say that again.
Oh, the phone will pop that up for you and say, oh, look, today, this week, you've averaged how many hours a day? And if you haven't got that turned on, turn that on, because it's sobering.
It is sobering. It's very sobering. Or even, you know, take 2 days and write down what you did with your time, and you'll be shocked by it. But it'll also tell you what you think your priorities are.
Exactly. Yes.
You know, so and if you're spending too much of your time on something that, like you said, was really not doing anything for you, you know, where you spend your time is money.
It's where you spend your life. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the life you're building.
Oh my.
And you're choosing it in every moment. We make so many choices every minute. We make lots of choices. It's being really careful about those choices.
Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't feel like a choice. Sometimes I think we allow life to kind of just like wave up on over us. And we think that we don't have choices. And there are things that we don't have, we do have to go to work. Some of us, we do have to take care of our parents. We do have to feed ourselves and, all of those things. But in between those, which is, you kind of said that, like, it's those in between times that you can make these small, tiny choices that really can change your day, change your attitude, change your health. All of it.
Absolutely. And as you were talking there, Kerry, I was thinking, other people's expectations too. We often feel that we don't have a choice because other people expect things from us. And part of being a good, decent human is looking after the people you love and meeting your responsibilities and honouring your promises. And that's all really important stuff. And you're not for a minute suggest that you not do any of those things. Do what you say you're going to do. That's really important. But maybe while you're sitting in the doctor's surgery, instead of flicking through a magazine, you could be sketching the receptionist or writing a poem or, humming a tune in your head or whatever.
Do you carry your creativity with you wherever you go?
I always have a notebook in my bag. Yes.
Yeah,
I do.
I always have my journal with me. Everywhere I go, I have my journal, always.
Yes.
Same thing. I don't ever want to get stuck. Matter of fact, Tracey and I were supposed to be recording this yesterday, but my daughter hurt her ankle, so we had to take her to the emergency clinic. And we are recording this actually in the middle of August. We're still in the middle of COVID. Hopefully, by next month it's going to be over, but I don't know that that's the truth. But but only one person was allowed to go in. So I was stuck in the car. But guess what? I had my bag of stuff and I was able to get my journal time in. I was able to do other things. If you're prepared, and that's a big part of it too, right? Being prepared to be creative.
Yes, for sure. And what a great way to spend that time, Kerry, when you'd be sitting there worrying and obsessing and wanting to text and see what was happening, when instead you can go, okay, here I am, I've got this, let's just, and it shifts things inside your head and in your heart, and it calms you down, it soothes you, it's great.
So I'm going to go back because we kind of really even skipped over even defining creativity, because I think probably another barrier to people adopting some sort of a creative practice is the words, but I'm not creative, I'm not an artist, I'm not a whatever it happens to be. But I may have read this somewhere, but we are all naturally creative, right? It just looks different for everybody. Like you said, your husband, he's a farmer, he's creative in his own way. It just doesn't look like a paintbrush. Like, I cannot yield a paintbrush to save my life. I think there's something to the distance between my hand and the end. And it's like my brain, it doesn't compute, but I love graphic art. I can color like a crazy person. I'm awesome at that. I like coloring inside the lines. I can do that. And I'm creative in other ways. So talk to me about, like, how do you define creativity, or how do you help people define creativity?
To me, creativity is that urge, that impulse we have that I think is a really primitive urge to bring something into material and physical existence that would not be in the world if not for us. And that's we want to make stuff, we want to leave a mark. And if you really think about it, I was thinking about this question, and I thought, really, creativity, the creative urge, is what ensures the success or the survival of the species. If any species didn't follow that natural creative urge, it would cease to exist. nature, the whole, the universe wants to create. It's just this huge force that's all around us and within us. And yeah, it's that tug. And when we ignore that tug, that urge, Brene Brown puts it well. What does she say? Something about unexpressed creativity doesn't go away; it metastasizes into grief and nasty stuff. And I truly do believe that's so. If we just completely ignore that urge to make a mark in the world somehow. And I mean, it could be a garden, it can be a meal, it can be making up a silly song with your kids. It can be like, we have a doctor who's, he's a brilliant doctor, the most creative problem solver I think I've ever met, but he will say, oh, I'm not creative. I'm like, oh man, you are one of the most creative people I know. I have a nephew who's a, corporate, high power, get stuff done in the business world guy who, I was talking about that with him, and he said, yeah. And that was actually in talking about sharing what we create, and that, when we've done something, then we want to share it, and it actually closes. Creativity is like a loop, I think, and sharing it closes the creative loop. And he was saying, he can spend 3 or 4 days building this killer spreadsheet, and he goes, but I can't really say, here, look what I made, but it feels so good. So, it can be a spreadsheet. It can be so many things. And I think, when being artistic and being creative are sort of two different things. And I mean, I think we can all be artistic too, but that's another conversation probably. But following that urge to make something that wouldn't exist in the world without us, to me, that's what choosing a creative life is. And it can be anything. There's no rules about what it is.
Which I love. I love that, the bigness of that statement. Because I do think that people don't stimulate that side of them because they have defined what that word means, as something completely different. It's interesting. I'm going through. Have you ever heard of the Enneagram? I couldn't.
Oh yes.
Okay, girl. So I'm about to have, tomorrow's my last day of like my 7 weeks of coaching on the Enneagram. So I'm a 7. And yeah, shocker. So, but it's funny because my definition, and they're the fun ones. They're the ones that are, creative and I always see the bright side. Like I can see myself reflected in all of them. And then she's like, you're fun. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Because in my mind, I had defined fun as frivolous and I'm a doer. I like purpose-filled things. I like checking things off my list. And I was like, fun. And she was like, Carrie, you're one of the most fun people I know. And I was like, no, I'm not, but it was so it's the same, to me, it's the same thing of just like, we come to define something really young in life, I think, and it's really our definition of what something is. And I think what I'd love to challenge people at home to do after listening to this is, come up with your idea of what creativity means in your life. And don't let it be boxed in by the artist label of yes. Oh, at all. I mean, it can be apothecary. It can be, who knows? I mean, painting in the stars.
It can be launching startup businesses. It can be so many things. Yeah. It's just something that didn't exist, if not
in
for
the world. And that's why we're here, right? I feel like that's why we're here. And in my mind, we're planted here so that we can grow that thing that we were supposed to grow. And that's exactly what it is. That's that creative process. And I hadn't thought about it that way before, but it truly is. Hey friends, I know you're loving my interview with Tracey, but I wanted to break in and tell you about her book titled When Your Superpower Becomes Your Kryptonite. Tracey herself describes it like this. part memoir, part self-help, as in to help myself, to remind myself of the things I know and need to remember, like how to take responsibility for my own life and happiness, and all the ways I could care of myself as kindly as I care for others. Turns out that writing this down helped myself and has helped others too. There are stories about fun stuff, creativity, gratitude, journaling, and play. There's also stories about hard things like grief, exercise, perfectionism, and boundaries. She jokes and says, "Tell me you find exercise and boundaries to be hard things too. It will make us forever friends." I completely agree. So you can buy Tracey's book called When Your Superpower Becomes Your Kryptonite on Amazon or through her website, where she will personally sign it at traceyhewitt.com. That's TraceyHewitt.com. And speaking of her website, go check out all of the awesome classes she has to offer over there, like Making Friends with Mural and Couch Art. Now, enough of all this, let's get back to my creative conversation with Tracey. Okay, so talk to me, where did creativity take root in your life? Like you say you've always been creating, but talk to me about kind of where all this comes from for you.
I think I was very fortunate to grow up in a house with my dad. My parents are both very creative. My mother, for a long, long time, until I was a very grown-up adult, would say, "Oh, I'm not creative." But she could style a room that would look like the cover of a magazine. And I remember her hanging wallpaper and, doing stuff like that. And, "Oh, but I'm not creative," she'd say. Anyway, she came to it kind of later in her life, but she's making up for lost time now. And my dad was a photographer when I was really small. He was a professional photographer, and I'd get in the dark room with him and, watch the photos coming up on the paper in the developing fluid and all that sort of fun stuff. He built stuff with metal and with wood, and he'd weld and he'd hammer, and he was always kind of making something. And I guess he modelled, having a creative aspect to your life to me. I hadn't really thought about it until you gave me that question to think about. So I guess I really have my parents and my extended family. My nana taught me to sew when I was really small, and she was a beautiful dressmaker, and my auntie played piano. And so, there was a lot of creative activity going on around me. So I guess it's always been there. It was just always there. I don't remember a time when I didn't want to make something. And my favourite book as a kid was the Volume 9 Children's Encyclopedia Britannica, which was Things to Make and Do.
Wow.
So that's there you go. So yeah, it's just always been there. Oh, and as I sort of grew up, I went to college to actually study art teaching, and discovered I love the art, but the teaching teenage boys art, just no thank you. It's no place I needed to be. But anyway, funnily enough, I've come full circle, and these days teaching art is really, really a wonderful joy for me. So it was probably always where I was meant to be. It just wasn't that part. It was over here.
Was there ever a time that you weren't creating? Did you ever, put down your paintbrush or?
I put down my paintbrush and picked up a sewing machine when my kids were small, because the frustration of little boys wanting to paint everything, including what I was painting, took all the joy out of everything.
Right.
I've dabbled in a lot of things over the years. I did patchwork for a long time, and that kind of morphed into textile art. And I've done some silversmithing, I've done some ceramics, I've done all kinds of things, a bit of photography in amongst it all. So there was always something. And then
so when did your creativity turn into more of a calling? Like, when did you know that this was more than just something you did on a regular basis, that you wanted to kind of share that with the world?
That's a really good question, and I don't know that I can pinpoint a time. It sort of happened slowly, I think. And it probably happened after lots of nudging from other people. I was sort of just doing my thing myself for a long time, and a lot of other people were saying, you should do more with this. You should follow that up. And I guess my boys were probably, I can remember one day in particular, at that stage I was making scarves, textile scarves. They were really arty, kind of funky looking things. And I'd gone out somewhere with one of the boys and my scarf on this day, and somebody commented on it, and he said, "Mum, you sell those, don't you? Tell her that you sell them." It's like, come on, woman, will you just do it? So they were in high school by then, so I was sort of, I was probably 40, but getting close to 40 anyway by the time I kind of started to own it, was actually comfortable to call myself an artist. So it took a while to kind of get there. But
really, you've been doing art all that time, and it took until then for you to say, "Yeah, I'm an artist."
I thought an artist was someone who did, was probably a man because he didn't have children to feed and dishes to wash. They were people who painted all day, every day, and like we were talking about before, you have this definition in your own mind, and it was like, actually, no, I am an artist. Yeah, and I'm very comfortable to say that now, but it did take me a long time to come to that. And and it was probably, I mentioned a little bout with anxiety there earlier on, and I think I'm just trying to piece together, because I don't dwell on it too much. It kind of, I just carry on. But I was diagnosed with anxiety. The doctor sort of said, he described it, and I love this description. He said, it's like you've got this tomato stand and you're giving away your tomatoes to everybody comes along because they love your tomatoes and you love giving them to them, and you just keep giving away all these tomatoes, and it's great and everybody's happy and you're happy because you feel good giving it away. And then one day you turn around and you've got no tomatoes left. He said, you've got to go and grow some more tomatoes. And that was just such a good, it was such a great analogy, and I really understand it. And it's kind of a bit of shorthand now. So, I'm off to grow some tomatoes. I've got to tend my own garden.
Yes.
That was a bit of a yucky time. And, as often happens in that situation, the doctor says, here, take the pills. You'll be fine. So I went home and took the pills. I thought, okay, but there's got to be more than just taking a pill. I'll do this because, well, I wasn't all that great.
Right.
But, there's got to be, I want to treat what's underneath that, the pill's a Band-Aid. We want to heal whatever's underneath. So I set about, doing that. And I did all kinds of things. I took up yoga and started meditating, and really focused on creating something, and I started to write. I started journaling a lot, and that led to writing a book. And I wrote, as Kerry and I were talking before we started, I wrote the book I needed to read.
Yeah.
When your superpower becomes your kryptonite. When you've got all that great tomatoes, but you give them all away.
And so, I mean, and that's where that title comes from, right? I mean, here's this, God-given talent, this thing that you are, it is in you to give to the world. And you end up, unbalancing yourself by pouring all your tomatoes out to everybody else and not saving any for you.
That's exactly right. And and then I talk about all, I don't call them my tomatoes in the book, but that's it, creativity, exercise. And let me tell you, exercise and I are not happy companions.
Oh, wait, say that again. Wait, stop, say that again.
Exercise and I are not happy companions.
Okay. I thought that's what you said, but I was like, no, I don't know that that's what she said. Okay, exercise and you are not happy companions. Okay.
No, not really. I don't enjoy huffing and puffing and sweating, and it's not my happy place. I do love yoga, and I do even love yoga when I'm huffing and puffing and sweating. So I was excited to find yoga. It was like, oh, finally the thing. And I do enjoy a good walk. But yeah, but it's important. And, and what goes on in here, being really mindful about what goes on in here. So just exploring all that. And I am raving on, and I have no idea what I'm telling you anymore.
It's okay. So we were talking about the book and how your kryptonite becomes your superpower becomes your kryptonite. I know I said it backwards.
That's okay. I feel like there was something I was going to say before that, and I can't remember what it was now.
It's okay.
Yeah. Oh, we were talking about how I came to how I came to sort of have this creative purpose.
Your calling, yes.
So yeah, I had always wanted to write a book, for as long as I can remember, but I never knew what about. And then it sort of became clear that what I thought I was writing was a book about art journaling, and how when I teach an art journaling class, I get people to write, because the fear of a blank page when you're doing artistic stuff can be really debilitating for people. So I sort of say, right, grab a pencil and write down and tip out whatever is bothering you, whatever's upsetting you, whatever you're feeling shame about, anything. Just tip out something that you'd like to get rid of or transform or transmute. And then we obliterate it with paint and collage and art, and what you've written in the process of doing that actually is transformed, and you don't actually have to think about it or talk about it. You just write it down and cover it up. So it's kind of that process. Oh, I've lost my train of thought again. What on earth is going on? Yeah.
You were talking about your calling and how this kind of became the calling, and you said you wrote the book to see. Now you've got me all tripped up. We're good.
Look, and I even put the rosemary and other oil on so that I'd be clear.
Girl, listen, you're good. Well, so you wrote the book really. You went into it thinking you were writing a book about art journaling. There we are. That's where we are.
That's where we
You wrote a book, and you said, well, I thought I was writing a book about art journaling, but that's not where. And this is a very typical story, which is everybody goes into something thinking they're writing about something, and then you get in it and you go, oh yeah, that's not what this is about.
That's not what this is about at all.
So tell me about that.
That's it. Well, I started writing, and I don't know, I must have opened a tap or unplugged a cork or something, because I started writing and it just kept coming. And yeah, it was clearly not about art journaling at all. But what I was trying to do was say that art journaling is really healing and helpful. But it turned into, these are all the things that are healing and helpful to me. And maybe they'll be healing and helpful to you too.
Do you feel like this was your roadmap to overcoming anxiety? Is this really, were these the things?
The things that, yeah, well, it is. It was written well after, like I was in a really much better place by the time I wrote it.
Right.
But yeah, it was kind of going back and picking my way back through that path and going, yeah, okay, this helped and that helped, and putting that all together. Yeah.
And really that's that arc, like you were talking about. That's that sharing piece. The creative, your creative process created all of these things that helped you overcome your anxiety, and then you go and share it. It doesn't, this creative process for you didn't look like a piece of art, except for the book is a piece of art, clearly.
Exactly.
But that sharing piece is what's so important.
It really is, and there's a little tricky bit in that sharing piece, because we've got all those stories in our head about what's good and what's worthy and what's valuable. So what I really, really want to say to people, if you don't remember anything else about this conversation, is the process is what's important, not the product. It's the process where the juice is. The product and the sharing of it is a lovely, joyful thing too, but judging the product is not what the point of the whole thing is. Yeah. And when you share what you've made, people see the energy that you've put into it, they see the love and care that you've put into it, and they see you in it, and they respond to that. They don't respond to some academic, you know, checklist of, you know, this is good because this and this, or that and that. They respond to your essence that's being shared in that thing. So that's just the really important part. The process is so important.
You know, it's interesting because you're right. I think what we create is a reflection of us, and I think a lot of times we don't see that. I think the other person definitely sees it, and it's interesting. So for those at home, whenever I ask someone to be a part of this, I always give like an inspirational quote from The Secret Garden that kind of ties in. And this one was, the buds began to unfurl and show color, every shade of blue, every shade of purple, every hint and hue of crimson. And what I thought about when I read that was that, like, tending to our creative nature helps us to unfurl and really reveals every shade of ourselves. And I think without tending to that creative nature piece of us, the people around us don't get to experience, I think, even the fullness of who we are. Does that make sense? Is that like a big, crazy statement?
No, it's really, really true. It's really true. And it's something that comes up often when I'm teaching a class that, you know, people go, oh, but, you know, I don't like my handwriting, or I don't like how this looks, or, and I do this. I did this just on last weekend, working alongside another artist and going, oh, I wish mine looked like that. I mean, we all do it. And it's not, it's another way that we're cruel and mean to ourselves. It's not seeing the very special, unique essence of us as being as valuable as the very special, unique essence of the person next door. It's just, we all do it. And it's, you know, your handwriting is like your fingerprint, what you create and you make. Like, it's like when you go to a potluck dinner and you have all those meals on the table and you kind of can guess who bought which one.
Yes.
Because you can't help but show up in everything you do, every mark you make, every statement you make, every act of kindness that you offer. We all are different. And, you know, when we can show up as who we are in our full best selves, then that's the best thing we can do for the world, is just give freely of who we really are.
Yes. Preach it. Yes. Yay. I love that. That's it, but it's true. It's true. And that comparison, I think, kills so much creativity in this world. It keeps people from even starting, even trying, even attempting it, because they can't be whatever this other person is. And the point is, you shouldn't be whatever that other person is, because they're not you.
Exactly.
you be you, and go create that one thing that, what'd you say, wouldn't come into this world if it wasn't for you. And that's when you stand out. That's when you share the best of you.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So we kind of talked a little bit about what a creative practice can do for us in our lives. Are there what are the benefits for somebody adding creativity into their daily routines?
I think when you're sort of getting into something like that, you get into that flow state. I think, you know, you probably heard of flow state, or you know, that Zen. What else do they call it? Or I even wrote it down. There's the zone. You can get in the zone.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you do that, everything else falls away and you are in this moment. So it can be a practice of mindfulness if you can kind of get into that. Just let everything else go away and just be with what you're doing in this moment. And when we can do that and get in that mindful state, that flicks on our parasympathetic nervous system. It calms us, it soothes us. Our flight or fight response gets sort of switched off, and we get into, what do they call it? Rest and nest, or I can't think what they call it. There's breed or sleep or something.
Oh, like REM sleep helps you get into REM
Yeah,
sleep?
no, there's the the fight, flight, or freeze response, and then it's
The
it's
opposite.
opposite is the parasympathetic response, and it's I can't remember.
Whatever. Don't worry about
There's
it.
a thing. Doesn't matter. But
Everybody's
it
got
switches
Google.
out.
They can Google it at home.
They can.
We
Oh,
can't spoon feed y'all everything.
everything.
You gotta go use your creativity online and figure it out. No.
Track that shit down. Oh, that's it. Yeah. So, but anyway, it does that
Yes.
for you, and that's really that's a really powerful thing. And I think when you make the time and make the commitment to yourself, and like I said, 10 minutes a day, it's not much. I think you talked to somebody a few weeks ago who gave you worked out a percentage, or she had a percentage of half of your meditation.
30 minutes a day is only 3%, is less than 3% of your total day, which is mind blowing to me. Like mind blowing. You can find 3% people.
Of course you can.
You can find it. Yes.
That's it. So, and when you do that, then and when you do that, and when you choose that, you are honoring yourself, and you're sort of showing yourself that you matter and you're going to take care of yourself. And when you regularly make a choice to do something that cares for you, you trust yourself more, and you can't, being kind to yourself is, when you're kind to yourself, you can be kind to the rest of the world. When you're raging a battle in your head and you're hating on yourself, it's really hard to be kind to the world around you. So be kind to yourself first, and it's much easier to be kind to the rest of the world. And goodness me, couldn't the world use more kindness right now?
Yes. It can always use more kindness, for sure.
Never
Yes.
too much of that. That's for sure.
So we've even kind of talked about practical tips for tending to this creative, side of us, our soul and our spirit. I mean, one of them we talked about was, just, putting it on the calendar, making sure that you do it first, before anything else. What else are we missing? Is there anything else we need to be talking about?
What else am I missing? I don't know. I just know that there's 168 hours in every week, and we all get 168 hours in every week. And, we've got to choose what we do with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
absolutely.
And there's all that stuff that we have to do, and that we're obligated to do, and that we've promised to do. And please, please, please do 10 or 15 minutes for you in a day. It just makes life better.
Oh, yeah. Go get a coloring book. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to haul out, colors and mark, you don't have to make a mess. Creativity doesn't have to be messy.
No.
It can look like a million things, but, I hope everybody, after listening to this conversation, I do hope that they challenge themselves to find a creative space in their day for at least 10 minutes, and you'll see things grow and bloom in a way that you didn't before, like she said, because it will calm you, it will stimulate you, all in the same vein. It'll instill, it's even just like going for a walk. Like your first 10 minutes makes you, excited to go for the next 10 minutes. And it'll be the same way, I believe, with creativity. Once you start and put it as a part of your life, you'll be excited about it the next day and can't wait to come back to that little piece of respite in your day. Okay, so one of the things that I ask all my guests is about the recent joy, goodness, and growth that's going on in your life. This is inspired also from my great-great-grandmother's words, where Mary talks about how, excuse me, about how she thought should never forget that first day when her garden began to grow. And I personally don't ever want to forget the joy, goodness, and growth that's happening around me. So I like to ask my guests this because I think it helps other people spot it in their lives when they see it reflected in there. So tell me about the joy in your life right now. What's bringing you joy? I mean, it could be anything as silly as a crazy Netflix show to like, I mean, whatever. What's bringing you joy?
What's bringing me joy? Oh, look, so much. And I think it's often, or it's almost always, the little things that are really joyful. I'm really lucky to have little grandchildren around. They're sort of 6 down to 9 months. And yeah, you can't not be joyful when there's little people around. So they're a delight. And I'm lucky also to work, well, lucky some days, other days I think it's the worst idea on earth. To work in a business with my kids and my husband, and you know, we kind of all connect every day, well, almost every day, and you know, they're funny and we laugh. Smoko, you were talking to one of your guests, were talking about this, was it Swedish, Finnish?
Yeah,
Fika. Well, we have Smoko, which it doesn't sound anywhere near as special. Smoko's, it derives back to back in the shearing sheds in early Australia, and you know, when they'd have their break they'd have their cigarette break and you know, their smoke break. So you know, we'll knock off the Smoko, and it was like a 15-minute, half an hour break for a cigarette. So no cigarettes here, but yeah, Smoko we still call it. So it's
what do you do during Smoko?
A cup of tea or coffee, depending on which you prefer, and some kind of little sweet biscuit. Well, now see, we call it a biscuit, you'd call it a cookie.
Okay, yes. Listen, girl, in Texas, we take our biscuits seriously. So,
I actually know that. Yeah, and what you call a biscuit is not what we're calling a biscuit.
No.
Chopped chip cookies and cakes and yeah, something. A little bit of a sweet something with a cup of tea, and everybody comes in and they make a big mess and they're all dusty and noisy and they all talk about what's going on outside and drink their tea and eat their biscuits and, you know, kind of go, oh, you cooked? Oh, really? Are you sick? Because they really like it when I cook, but I don't do it very often. And then they all go again, and it's like a whirlwind's been in and out, but it's a lovely burst of energy as well, most of the time. Sometimes it's a bit hectic, but that's a happy time in the day. So there you go. Lots of joy. Oh, and hanging, you know, seeing the artwork hanging in an exhibition after you've kind of worked on it for like, you know, probably 2 years. That's pretty joyful too. That moment of, oh wow, that looks really good hanging up there all together. That's pretty cool.
That is really cool. We actually, my husband and I own a restaurant, and that's one of the things that I do is I work with artists, and we change out our art every couple months, and I love watching the look on the faces of the artists when it's all up, and it's like this part relief, part joy, part, you know, pride, but you know, just like, oh wow, it's okay, this is really happening. And
you just nailed it.
Yeah, because it's like a mix of all, because it's, you know, it's probably also like getting married, because you have worked all of this time for all of these, you know, and then you're like, okay, wait, now it's over.
It's done.
It's done. Now what do I do? Now what do I do?
Oh, that is really true. That's really true.
Oh my goodness. Well, I love that. Well, I love that other people get to enjoy your stuff. Also in a hospital setting, I think art is so important. My daughter actually was diagnosed about 6 months ago with lupus. So we have been in and out of hospitals for the last few months, and the local hospital just has gorgeous floral art that from the minute you walk in the door all the way through does something to me, puts me in a state of calm, in a space, in a place where calm is not really the normal, right? I mean, you're going in there because something is wrong. And I don't think I ever understood the role that art had in a hospital space until this recent experience. And I know I was super thankful for it. So, and I know the people who come in contact with your art will feel the same way, which I think has got to be a cool thing, even just to sit back and think about, right?
Oh,
you know, somebody's struggling right now, and they are looking at your stuff.
yeah, and it is a good feeling. As we were leaving, we installed it all, and as we were leaving, there was this guy walking up the corridor. So it's every couple of months it changes, and he sort of went, "Oh wow, oh, isn't this beautiful?" Oh, and he was a really crusty, sort of rough-looking fellow, and he was just, he was spellbound. It was so beautiful. I mean, they're portraits of imaginary women, and they're each accompanied by a poem, and the exhibition's called When Wise Women Whisper. So for me to see a man responding it felt very feminine and female, and for me to see a man responding to it that way was a really big buzz. It was a really big buzz.
I love that. I'm also going to use that term also, a really big buzz. All right, everybody in Texas, when you hear me going, that's a really big buzz, this is where I got it from, this girl over here. I love that. Okay, so let's go one step deeper than just joy. Like, what are you feeling grateful for right now?
Oh yeah, look, all those things I just mentioned, probably.
Well, of course.
Yes, and for opportunities like this, the world's in such a strange place right now, but there are still so many opportunities for delight and for connection, and I think I'm always grateful for an opportunity to connect and with anybody anywhere, and we're so fortunate that that's so accessible to us right now. So that's pretty good. And
it is amazing. It is the connectability. I mean, the fact let's just be clear. It blows my mind that you are in Australia and I am in Texas and we are having a conversation. Like just even the logistics of how that even happens and how it goes through the air, and that we can do this is crazy cool. But I think also I feel really thankful for even this pandemic, because I think it's forced us into places like this and spaces like this to connect in ways that maybe we hadn't thought of before. Like, we had to get creative, right? We had to use our creativity and figure out, okay, if I can't do, these things another way, like how else can I do it? And it, I know for me, it has connected me with people like you that I know I wouldn't have been able to meet otherwise, had the pandemic not shut down all the other things I was doing. And I went, okay, I'm going to start this podcast. We're just going to do this. Right.
Exactly. I've got a group of girlfriends who we're a bit spread out, and we love to get together, but it doesn't happen very often. And when the pandemic sort of hit and we went, oh no, we're not going to, who knows how long till we see each other, we started a Zoom call once a week. Every Thursday afternoon, we pour a glass of wine and tune in. And it's been fantastic. And we all keep saying, why have we not done this before now? Like, why did we leave it this long? So, yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Oh my goodness. Okay, and then the last one, what are you learning in life right now? What kind of growth are you seeing? I'm sure, listen, we're all learning every day, right?
Oh, Kerry, I'm going to tell you, I'm in my office and the window's in front of me, and my husband's just come to the window and doing this one and making faces at me. So that's why I was talking about laughing. What am I learning? Oh, goodness me, so much. A Squarespace, building Mum's website. I'm learning a new web platform. So it's always fun. I quite enjoy that, though. It's good to stretch. I love to stretch. I'm learning about what it is to enter your I'm trying to think of a nice way to say getting old.
No, yeah.
I'm learning about the challenge. I'm learning about the aged care system and how it works, and how maybe it doesn't work very effectively. Mm-hmm. And the challenges of that. I'm actually learning to set boundaries, and that's a big thing. I write about it in my book. And boundaries for me have always been, that balance between keep everybody happy, be a good girl, keep everybody happy, and here is my line in the sand, and I won't, this is to protect me. So I'm learning about boundaries, and I think that's going to be an ongoing thing. I've been learning about boundaries for a long time, but I've had opportunities lately to really get my stick and draw my line really hard in the sand. So, and I've been doing it, and every time you do it, you feel a little bit better and a little bit stronger. So that's a good thing.
Well, maybe boundaries is a practice for you.
Yes, actually, correct.
Yeah.
No. If no was meant to be hard to say, it wouldn't be such a little word.
So I pre-pandemic, I spoke quite a bit, and one of the things I talk about is, everybody should have a no speech, because if you're not prepared to say no, you're going to say yes. So true. I tell everyone, you got to get a no speech. And my no speech was, and when I used to give it, I had chickens. I don't have chickens anymore, but my no speech went something like this, which was basically like, hey, thank you so much for asking me to whatever, be on the PTA or be a part of the board or whatever it is. I know myself, and I don't do anything I can't give 120% to. And right now, I just don't have that time to give. Plus, if I said yes to this, either my chickens, my dogs, or I had 12 chickens, 3 dogs, and 2 children, and a husband. And I said, if I said yes to you, one of those wouldn't get fed and they might die. So I don't think you want that kind of blood on your hands. And so I left them giggling. I told them the truth, but I left them kind of giggling. But having the ability to have a no speech in my back pocket has given me the ability to draw that line, because you and I are both very similar in the fact that I am susceptible to busy. I'm always, I'm giving out my tomatoes a lot. and being able and having the power to say, yeah, no, I can't. And just because, and the other thing I always tell people is, just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Good.
Just because we can do it does not mean we should do it, people. It's not, our job is not to do everything.
No.
Yes, we got to step back so somebody else can grow that thing.
If we're doing it, we're stopping someone else from, really getting in amongst it. Yeah, absolutely. Growing themselves.
This has been so much stinking fun. Tell people, first of all, tell people about where they can buy your awesome book.
Okay, so it is available on my website at traceyhewitt.com. It will cost you more there, because that's how all those things work. What you don't get, you can get it from all the online booksellers, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the places. And it will be much cheaper, and I don't have a problem with you making the cheaper choice, because I'd rather you just have it in your hands but if you get it from me, I'll sign it for you and pop a little something in the bag as well to say thank you. So, but shipping from Australia is, and it takes a long time right now. So get it however you can get it. I don't mind.
Well, I'm excited. I told her, I had to admit, I haven't read it yet. It's not my season right now. I have so many things on my plate that I can thumb through something right now, but I have not made it to a full book yet. I've actually tried to watch the same Netflix episode 2 nights in a row, the last 2 nights, and I've yet to make it through without falling asleep. So if that tells you what season I am in right now.
Yeah, let's go to bed early, caring season. Yeah.
Where can they follow you on social media?
Okay, so there are actually links on my website to that, but I'm Tracey Hewitt on Instagram. On Facebook, I'm Tracey Hewitt, artist and writer. And Tracey Hewitt on YouTube. There's a few YouTube videos. There's not much there on YouTube, but there's a couple of things there. So I do have a Twitter account and a LinkedIn account, but I don't use either, so I won't waste your time with those.
No, I don't do Twitter. It's too many. Like you said, we all have to make choices, right? We got to choose which places we're tending and watering and all that kind of stuff. We cannot do it all, nor should we do it all. So
No, exactly.
no,
Correct.
but we will be creative each day. We will add that into our practice if we have not done that for everybody at home.
And if people want to send me a little story about what they've done to be creative, or send me a picture or something, I'd love to see it.
Oh,
So,
I love that. You're such a good cheerleader for creativity. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. And thank you everyone who is listening or watching us on YouTube. My hope is that your eyes are now opened to the practice of creativity and how it can be a positive thing as you work towards living a more well-tended life. I know I am excited to go back and kind of look at my calendar and see if there are other places where I can add in little bits of creativity and joy into my day as well. So until next time, y'all, blessings and blooms. Thanks, Tracey.
thank you so much, Kerry. It's been so much fun.
Oh my goodness, friends. I hope you loved that conversation as much as I did. Creativity is so important, despite whether you think you're an artist or not. I hope you make time this week to fit some in. And y'all, go buy her book, check out her classes, and follow Tracey on all the things. You won't be sorry. Hey, and don't forget, this is the 4th episode in our Practice of series. So if you've missed the others, go back and take a listen. Then stay tuned here for next week's episode as we continue this Practice of series with another artist and author who chats with us about the practice of turning burdens into blessings. That's Carrie Schmidt, and I can't wait to interview her and find out about her new book. And finally, thank you to all who have subscribed to the podcast and left reviews. If you haven't done this yet, take a minute today to do so. 5 stars are, of course, our favorite, and your review actually helps others to see this podcast in their newsfeed. Thank you again for spending time with me today on this life-tending journey. Until next time, y'all, blessings and blooms.